All right, once you open your techlog, make sure you click on techlog modules so that it highlights all these modules so that they will be loaded into the software. Then we take start software and okay. So these are just additional information. You may just write the given name, you may just write the Josephus or whatsoever. Just write the Josephus. Josephus International. Josephus International. And then you take OK. So this is the interface of techlog. And if you go through it, you're going to realize that there are so many things that techlog can do. We have our home page. That's a lot of things where you can print, where you can import data, and so on. We have our plot, where we have so many plots for single well and multi-well. We have the cross plots, we have the line plots, we have histogram, and so on. We have here Petrophysics, where we are going to base our analysis to do petrophysical analysis, calculating volume of shield, porosity, lithology, also to do environmental corrections, even though we are not going to go into all of that. But all of these corrections are done based on the various companies, that produce the log. It may be Schlumberger, Halliburton, Waterford, and so on. Then we have geology. Go under geology. We have to process image log. We have to process image, borehole image log. We have to process it. They can process and interpret it for its textures and all of that. Then we have geomechanics also. So techlog also is very effective in geomechanical, analysis. So you can calculate your pore pressure, fracture gradient, you can analyze the log for its elastic properties, rock strength, and all of that. Then also, you can also do some kind of drilling analysis. So it is used also for drilling. For those in the petroleum engineering field, you can do a lot around this area. I'm just showing this, but we are not going to go into all of this. We are going to base more on petrophysics, but you can always use techlog, and then you do so many things. One thing you have to always understand about software is that once you have been introduced into a particular software, you can always go ahead to do a lot of things with that software. Don't always think that someone has to come in and teach you everything about the software before you can learn that software. No. Once one particular aspect has been treated in that software, you can go through all the aspects and test for yourself and see how you can do all those things by yourself. Don't expect that someone must come in and show you how to do all these things. Then we could also have reservoir engineering. And then we could also have geophysics, like to carry out rock physics analysis, rock physics analysis. 1G, your mic is disturbing. To carry out rock physics analysis, then we could also have unconventional reservoirs. I just believe that we should know what unconventional reservoirs are. We know that generally we have two types of reservoirs. We have conventional and unconventional reservoirs. Conventional reservoirs are those that are porous and permeable, like our sandstone and our carbonates, like I explained yesterday. But the unconventional reservoirs have very low permeability. No matter how the porosity is, but it has a very low permeability. And in that case, we may also have shale that is acting as a reservoir. That means the organic matter in the shale cooks itself up and is converted into hydrocarbon. But this hydrocarbon does not migrate from the shale into any rock. So the shale is acting in that case both as a source rock and a reservoir rock. But in that case, it's going to be an unconventional reservoir. We have a lot of these in the United States. In the United States. So our main interest is going to be more on petrophysics. It's going to be more on petrophysics. That's where we are going to base our interest on. So I don't know, is there anyone who probably tried to work on it since I installed all the software? Is there anyone who probably went through it and tried to work with it without me saying anything? Eh?
Yeah.
What about you, Brian? Brian, are you with us?
Hello, I also just installed it and then opened it. I haven't tried it out.
Okay. Since I installed it, you have not done anything on it, right? All right.
Yeah.
All right. So we will come to projects and we take new. We want to start a new project. So we'll come to project and we take new. You can always open an existing project that you have probably worked with and you have saved. So we can open that. So we come to new and we take an existing project. We may give the project name. So you have to give a name to the project whatsoever. I may still just call it Josephus. I have to give the name to the project. I may call it Josephus. You have to give the country if you wish. You can identify your country there. And then you might write a short description of what the project is all about. You might write a short description of what the project is all about. Then you take next. Then we have project folder. You have to choose where the project would be. You have to decide where you want to store the project. I will just advise that we just leave it like that. So we have drive C, techlog, and then projects under techlog in drive C. So project status in progress. We just leave everything like that and we take next. Then connect to server. Does not concern us that much. You take next, then you take finish. Once you do that, you realize that all of these things up here have been highlighted now. At first, you could not click on any of them. At first, you could not click on any of them. But once you have done that, you can now click on any of them and you realize that it is now functioning. So once you take finish, you click on that's what you're going to see. Those who are working with that laptop in front of them, is it okay? Are we okay right up to that step?
Yes, sir.
All right.
Yes, sir.
All right. We go now to import. We want to import our log. Import. You are going to see this will come there. So we now see the Josephus that appears there. All right. Here where we have a file, where we have files in import, we are at the tail end, we see this. So you click on it. After this arrow, this file, you see this yellow small box here to show that we want to choose where the log is. We want to select the log from our database, from our computer. We want to select. So I'm going to click on it and then this will appear. Once this appears, you know exactly where you have saved that log. You know exactly where you have saved the log. So I will go to my desktop. My own is on the desktop. You must have downloaded the sample 1 and sample 3. My own is on the desktop. Josephus summer internship, week 1. Then this is my sample 1. That's where I kept mine. So you must know exactly where you have kept the sample from the desktop. I'm waiting for all of us to be. Are we there? Naomi, have you seen it? So I'll cancel it. I will take this.
Yes, me, I've seen it.
Okay, all right, all right. So once you choose the sample one, you take open. It appears there. It simply appears here easily like that because that log is in last format. If it was in ASCII format, it would have been very complex for you to input it. But the log is in last because there are two formats in which a well log may appear. It may come in the last format or it may come in the ASCII format. So if any time in the future and you have a log which is in ASCII format and you find it difficult to input it, you can always contact me. So once it comes here, I will highlight it. Then I will take this arrow. Once it comes here, I will highlight it and I take this arrow and I click. It immediately comes under data set. So I can open the sample one now. I see everything that is there. I open the sample one. I see depth. I see gamma ray, caliper, SN, spontaneous potential. I see so many logs there. All right, so you go to plots, you go to plot. After project home, you see plot there. When you go to plot, you see log view. You see log view. You see log view there. When you open the log view, you come here and you toggle this down. You toggle this exa1 down. Then I have the sample. I toggle the sample down. Remember yesterday I said in arranging your logs, the first track is always a lithology track. And in that lithology track, the key is gamma ray. In that lithology track, the key is gamma ray. That's the key there, which is gamma ray. Wanji, what's our problem with video? You want to finish people's data? It's okay. Let's continue. All right. So the first track there is always the lithology track, which is gamma ray. So we carry the gamma ray after you have taken the well log, the well view, carry the gamma ray. This is GR, gamma ray. You just click on it, hold, then you carry it, and then when you get to this space, you just allow it. You get to this space, you just allow it. Once you allow it, you just see this plot will just automatically come out. So that's the plot. You can always scroll down to see all of it. You can always scroll down to see all of it. All right, our next track is the resistivity track. So we are going to carry RT. We carry RT there, then we leave it. It forms the next track. We carry RT, we leave it after the gamma ray. We leave it there. It forms the next track. You realize that the scale and this scale, they are different. This is a linear scale and this is a logarithmic scale. Resistivity is always in logarithmic scale, not linear scale. Our next track is the porosity track, which is made up of density and the neutron. So I'll carry this rock B, then I leave it there. That's the density. I leave it after. Make sure that you leave it after the RT. Then I carry neutron. Hey, this is serious. Neutron is not there. Okay, this is compensated neutron lock.
Yeah.
CNL is compensated.
CNL.
Yes, it's compensated neutron lock. All right, so we carry it and we leave it on the same track as density because we want to make a cross plot. So we leave it there on that density track. So we leave it there. We leave it on that track. All right. If we are at that level, you can always increase the scale of this cross plot, of this log plot, or you reduce it. So I will click anywhere and hold. Click anywhere and hold. Then you press the down button on your computer. Once you press the down button on your computer, you realize that the thing is going down. Hold on. No, that's not exactly what I wanted to show. Let's leave that. We'll come to that. All right, let's arrange the scale of this particular log plot. So what I will do now is, we are not too sure of what this baseline will be because this baseline is a cut-off value that differentiates between the reservoir and the non-reservoir. You will see clearly here. If I put my mouse, my pointer at the center where that line is, I can always click hold, drag it from forward and backward, drag it forward and backward. I can always click it, hold, drag it forward and backward like that to shift. It depends on your cut-off value because once this line is placed, this area simply tells me that it is a reservoir rock, which could be possibly sandstone or limestone. Then this area is a non-reservoir rock. Then I will now be looking at the resistivity and the neutron density cross plot to know exactly what type of fluid I have in that reservoir. If I have oil, I have gas, or I have water in that reservoir. But the first thing that will tell me what type of reservoir I have is this gamma ray. So I can always look at this. I can always shift it left and right. All right. So what I will do now is I will come on top of this gamma ray plot, anywhere on top of the gamma ray plot. Make sure that you click exactly on the line. Once you click on the line, you realize that it is broken like that in red color. Click on top of a line, a particular line. Once you click on top of the line, anywhere on the line, you realize that it is broken like that, red colored. I now come here, I can now do any adjustment that I want to do here. I cannot do any adjustment that I want to do here. But remember that it has to be, you must click it before you come here. Otherwise, if you don't, whatever you come and do here, you will not be doing it. It will definitely not concern this particular plot. So I can come here now and I start checking whatever I have there. what type I have. Is a gamma ray. Gamma ray, that's a symbol. I may look at the limits. Either I leave it like this. The limits now are the lower value and the upper value of the gamma ray. That's what we have there. That's the scale from 0 to 150. That's the scale there. But I may want to change it. I will take user. Once I take user, I will now change it. Maybe I may want to put from 0 to 200. Maybe I want to put from 0 to 200. Once you take that, you realize that the scale has changed. Once you take, but if you put it at family, you cannot change. You cannot change it. You cannot change it. So we can always use but from when you put it at variable, you see the lowest value and the highest value. We know that the scale has to be something that will definitely contain the lowest value and the maximum value, and we don't move far away from the lowest value and far away from the maximum. Definitely our lowest value will always be 0, but the point now is, what would the maximum value be? It could be 100, it could be 150, it could be 200, it could be 250. But in this case, this is our highest value. When you put it at variable, you can see the lowest and the highest value. So this highest value will tell us that our upper limit should be 150. We don't want to take 200 because it will be far away from the highest value. So we will just take, if the family is okay, then we just leave it at family. There's no need changing it. Then we look at the scale. I said the scale is always linear, so we don't have to change the scale. So the scale there is linear. So that one has no problem. The scale is linear. Then we can also look at display option. We can also look at display option. We look at display option. What is the display type? What's the display type? It could be global or it could be variable. We explain that later. So let's leave it at global. Then we have, I'm looking at color. So we have color with variable. Color with variable. So we can always choose which color we have for the lines. Which color you have for the lines. You can always choose that. You can always choose that. All right, you can also choose what type of line you have. If it's going to be continuous line or broken lines. So we have continuous. What is the line? Solid lines. It could be solid lines, it could be dashed lines, it could be dots and all of that. So we want the lines to be continuous and to be solid lines. Like we come here, we realize that for under this, the neutron is dotted, is a broken lines. So we may not want to use broken lines, we may want to use solid lines. So once you come there, you have to change that. You may also want to change the thickness of the line. Maybe you increase it or you decrease it. You may want to change the thickness of the line. Maybe you increase or decrease. So we are going to leave it at that. All of these ones, they're not too important. You can always check so many things. So once we have done this, you can go through all of them and try to check and see whatever you want, you try to check. All right, so once I click here, you realize that this line is not longer broken. It means that whatever you're seeing here does not concern this line again. It doesn't concern gamma ray again. It doesn't concern gamma ray. If we come now to the resistivity, you realize that this resistivity plot does not have this baseline. It doesn't have this baseline. So what I will do now is I can click here and we will have the baseline there. You can always see what the header will be. You can always read from the header there. You can read everything that you have that you want there. Insert a horizontal track. You can always insert tracks. Insert a separation track. So there are so many things that you can do there. So you can now click at the header. You see the same thing. Even if you click at the header there, you're going to see the same thing. You realize that the header contains all those information that we inserted at the beginning. What's the author and all of that. So you can always click at the header there. All right, so what I'll do now is I will click on top of the line. I will click on top of the line so that it becomes broken, so that I can also edit it here. I will click on top of the line so that it becomes broken, so that I can edit there. If you click on top of the line and it becomes broken, if you right click now, once I click on top of the line, it becomes broken. If I right click now, whatever information that I have here concerns this line. So I will look at this, insert vertical baseline. So I will insert the vertical baseline. Maybe I insert it there. It could also divide this, the resistivity, into two regions. It could divide the resistivity track also into two regions. You divide the resistivity track into two regions, and you have now to determine the cutoff, because what we have to do here is we have to determine the cutoff value. What value are we going to use? Let's come back to the gamma ray. What value are we going to use as our baseline? What value are we going to use as our baseline? If I highlight this line and I come here, if I come under limits, there's an area there where we have maximum, we have the minimum value. Where do we have that minimum value? We have the minimum, maximum, we have the mean value, properties, display option. Give me 1 minute. All right, I wanted to show how we can get this cutoff value, but I seem not to get that value here. That value, the value definitely was supposed to be here. Generally, what we are going to use as our cutoff value is going to be the mean value. We have our maximum value, we have our minimum value. What we are going to use is the average gamma ray value. We use that average gamma ray value as our cutoff. So if the average gamma ray value is, let's say, at 80, we may drag this and leave this around 80. Or you may just put the value here. You may just put the value here, 80. Once you put it and click, the value now is at 80. That baseline is at 80. The baseline now is differentiating between what is sand and what is shale. It means that in this area, this is our sandstone, this is our sandstone, this is shale, and so all of this now is shale, all of this is shale. So this is our potential reservoirs. These areas now are our potential reservoirs. This area, all of this now becomes our potential reservoirs. We come now to the resistivity. We check now. Once we have identified our reservoir and our non-reservoir, our interest now is within the reservoir zone. We don't have any business with the non-reservoir zone. So I will come here now. And I check what the resistivity would be. I look at this particular area. This particular area is a reservoir. I look at the resistivity. You realize that the resistivity is a little bit higher here. If I look at this particular zone also, the resistivity will be higher. One person may identify this as separate reservoirs. Another person may identify all of this as a single reservoir. So another person may say this is reservoir 1, this is reservoir 2. Another person may say all of this represent one reservoir. The two of you are not wrong, but it depends on what you are going to calculate and interpret at the end of the day. But if the distance is so far like this particular shale bed is so thick, so I cannot assume that all of this is a reservoir. That would be absolutely wrong. But in this particular case where this particular value is small, if you identify all of this as a single reservoir, there's still no problem. But I would definitely want to call it as reservoir 1 and reservoir 2. Reservoir 1, reservoir 2, this is reservoir 3. Then we could call this now as reservoir 4. So if you look at the resistivity plot, you're going to realize that the resistivity value is high. The resistivity value for this reservoir is high. So definitely we should be talking of a hydrocarbon within this particular reservoir. We should be talking of having a hydrocarbon within this particular reservoir. But the question now is, what type of hydrocarbon do we have in this reservoir? That's where the problem is. What type of hydrocarbon do we have within this reservoir? So we have to check now all of this plot. So I will come to this neutron plot. I don't want it to be broken line. I will highlight it. Once I highlight it, it means that whatever I'm dealing with here involve that. So I will come down here, go to the limit. All right. So we have variable. We can also change the values. I've already explained this. We can take variable or we take user. We take variable or we take user. Now you go to display option. That's no, we could also put it as point form. You could change the color. You click here. You could choose any color of your choice. If you click here on this blue, you could choose any color of your choice. If you want the curve to be black, you can take black. If you want it to be green, you can take green. If you want it to be red, you can always take red. You can take red. Once you do that, you can take OK. You can take OK. So for color, we have done that. All right, so this is what I was looking for. For continuous line, we don't want it to be dashed line. We take solid lines. Once you take solid lines, you click, you realize that the line is now solid. The line is now solid. So that's what we have there. So you realize that now what we explained yesterday is that we may have something like a balloon effect. So we expect that when we get into a reservoir zone, the density definitely has to drop a little bit and the neutron value will drop a little bit. But if we get to that particular zone, first thing first is let's look at what we have here. I explained yesterday that for you to have a cross plot, there must be a situation where the density and the neutron value are increasing in different directions. But if you look at what we have here, they are all increasing in one direction. We don't want that. Density is increasing in this direction and neutron is increasing in that direction. We want a situation where they are increasing in different directions. So we have to change that. We have to change that. So I will highlight this also. Orientation of axis. I don't know why this is not highlighted. Variable. We're supposed to change it from here, but this one is not highlighted. That's where I'm trying to verify what the problem is. Okay, so what we are going to do is we are going to click on invert. Click on invert. Once you click on invert, the axis will be inverted. Wanji, you are still there without your video. Please put the video off. All right. So we take it broken lines. We go to display option, the solid lines. We come to limit, take invert, invert. All right. So you look at the, once you take inverts, where you come to limit, where you are at limit. All right, it has inverted. So once you take that, you realize that density is increasing in this direction and neutron is increasing in the opposite direction. Once you do that and you follow the lecture that we have yesterday, you are going to understand exactly what is happening. So when you get into this reservoir, you realize that density is dropping. Density drops and neutron also drops. Because if you don't do that particular situation where they are increasing in opposite direction, you cannot recognize the balloon effect. So you realize that when you get to this particular point, the density is dropping when it gets to the reservoir, even though it doesn't drop that much, it drops at gradually up to this point. Then the neutron also drops. And then when you get to this other reservoir, the same thing is happening. The same thing is happening. So you can actually see some kind of bulging around this area. You can see some kind of bulging around this area. You can see some kind of bulging around this area. So what else we can do is, please, 1 minute. All right. So once you do that, you realize that you can actually identify, because our interest is no longer in this zone. We don't have any business with this zone. Our interest now is observing what is happening within this particular zone. So once you invert the axis, you can actually see the bulging that is taking place around this particular zone. You can actually see the bulging that is taking place. So what we are going to do, all right, if you have any question, you can drop in the chat box. I'll answer the question at the end. Once I've finished with what I am doing, I'll answer it at the end. If you have any question, just drop it in the chat box. All right. So what I'll do now is I will highlight this density. I hold control button. I also highlight the neutron, because what I want to do concerns the two. What I want to do concerns the two. So I'm going to highlight. I click on, let me do it again. I click on any one of them, then I hold control button and I click on this. Once you click this, it means that whatever you're doing, whatever information you have here concerns the two. So I will right click now. And then I will take insert area field between the variables. Insert area field between the variables. So I will click on that. So you now see that it has been inserted, but I can always change the color. So once you highlight the two and you take that, you can always see this insert area field between the variables. They will now insert the two. Take a man and go inside your room. You will now insert the areas between the two. All right, so once it's inserted, you now have that. I can now click on it, and I would like to change the color. I would like to change the color. So once I click this region inside, once I click the region inside is highlighted, I come here, I may want to change the color. I may want to change the color. I'll look at it and see if it is by color, if you have two different colors, if you like to fill the two regions or only one. So I would like probably, let me see, you may want to fill it with some other type of color. This yellow color, I may want to take black. I take black and see it changes like that. And then to field, both or left, let me see, voila, I take left. Once I take left, this one now disappears because my interest is only in the reservoir zone. I don't want to color so many things that will get me confused at the end of the day. My interest is just to color what I have in the reservoir zone. I don't want to color so many things. So once I have colored the two zone, I just click in the middle on any of the color. I come here, I'm going to see area field. I take just the left, then I may change the color. You may want to put by a pattern, you put a pattern. Then if also you have the right, if also you want to put the right, you can also choose a type of color that you want to put on the right. But here I have decided that my field should just be one. I just want just the left field. I want just the area that concerns the reservoir. If I come back and I take both, you realize that the color will come back. If I come and I take right, you realize that this part is not colored. It is instead this other part that is colored. But I want the reservoir to be colored, so I'm going to take left. I take left so that that area is colored. So that's what I have. So that area is colored. This is my class. All right. So once we have done that, now we can now do our interpretation. So from here, we realize that we have a reservoir in this particular zone. What we can see here, we can see clearly. First thing first, let's look at there's one more thing that I want to show before we conclude. Let me check that. All right. We may want to arrange the scale a little bit for density. So we will not leave the scale like that. Density is red. Let's highlight the red. Density is red, so let's highlight this red. Let's come here and see how we can adjust that scale. If you look at what we have here, the maximum value is 2.237 and the minimum value is 2.5. But generally, we cannot plot with the minimum and the maximum value. We always want that for the density scale, the difference between the maximum and the minimum should be 1. The difference between the maximum, because if you don't adjust the scale, you might be doing the wrong interpretation. So if the difference between the maximum and the minimum should be 1, I would prefer to use user. When I use user, then I will use, since this minimum is, the maximum is 2.5, I will take this to be maybe 1.75. I will take this to be 1.75, and I take this to be 2.75. 2.75. Voila. Once you do that, you're already seeing how the adjustment is taking place. Because if you don't do that adjustment, you will end up doing the wrong interpretation. Maybe you see something that is a balloon effect, which generally is not a balloon effect. So you have to make sure that you adjust that scale. So I will take user and I adjust the scale. 1.75, and here I have 2.75. The difference between the maximum and the minimum should be 1. So if I take maybe 1.65, and then the maximum should be 2.65. But always make sure that the scale should fall way below, it should fall within the interval. Victory. All right. So once you have done that, you realize that you now see a huge adjustment of this scale, a huge adjustment around this particular area. You would have seen something like a balloon effect, but we are seeing that it's not a balloon effect. That means you have been concluding that it's a gas, Meanwhile, probably it is oil in that particular reservoir. So we have adjusted the scale. Yeah, we have adjusted the scale. Also, when it comes to the neutron, there are two scales that we are going to, that they generally use. There are two scales that they generally use. Either you use from 0 to 0.6, or you use from 0.45 to negative 0.15. In this case, this is the maximum and the minimum. I will use, remember that we click on inverted. So to invert the axis so that the neutron is increasing in the opposite direction to the density increment. So I will also take variable here, and I will take 0.6 here. I will take 0.6 here, and I will take 0 here, and I will take 0 there, and I'll take 0 there. All right, I've now clicked on it. So this is blue. All right, so you see that once you don't highlight it, whatever you see here will not make sense. So you now see exactly what we have. We have 0 here, and we have 0.6 there. If you have negative values, then this minimum value, if you have negative values, we may have negative 0.15 here, then we have 0.45 here, we have 0.45 there. If we have negative values, but since we don't have negative values, we are going to have 0 here, and then we are going to have 0.6 there. We are going to have 0.6 there. So that is our scale. So you realize that when you now adjust the scale, you now see a lot here. Even for the resistivity also, let's see if we can adjust the scale for resistivity. We adjust the scale for resistivity. The maximum is 0.2, and the minimum is 0.2, and the maximum is 2000. So we may just want to leave it like that. I think it's okay. There's no problem there. But if the maximum is not 2000, or it is, let's say, 150, then putting the maximum value at 2000 will be too far. But remember that the resistivity is plotted in logarithmic scale. So the lowest value can never be 0. It must be 0 point something. Whatever value you are using here, that is the same value you're using there. So if I have 1000 here, I'll use 0.1. If I have 100 here, I'll use 0.1. If I have 500 here, I'll use 0.5. If I have 200 here, I'll use 0.2. So whatever value you are using for the lower limit should correspond with the number that you have here. But since our family is telling us that the maximum is 2000, I don't think there's any need for us adjusting. So once you have done that, you can just conclude a lot around this particular area. It will just tell you that in this particular reservoir, I have oil there. It's clear that it's oil because resistivity is telling us that it's high. So if I have high resistivity, then definitely it should be oil, not water. Because if it was water, then because you cannot easily differentiate between oil and water when it comes to this particular plot. That's the reason why resistivity is telling you if it is oil or water. But if it was gas, you would have seen that huge bulging, which is a balloon effect. So if you don't adjust the scale well, you might be saying that something is gas, meanwhile originally is oil. So we have oil here. So you realize that in all the reservoirs, we have oil. In all the reservoirs, we have oil there. We have oil in all the reservoirs. All right. So what I have said here is there is a huge task in determining where this baseline would be. The baseline is usually the mean value. I am not seeing it here, but I will show you tomorrow. Remind me tomorrow. I will check that out at the end of the class and check where to get the mean value. Because generally, when I highlight this plot and I come here, after all of this description, you are supposed to see the average value. But I'll cross-check again, and I'll indicate. So this, our baseline should be where the mean value is, or where the average value is. If you come here and you don't want this, you can always eliminate all of this. So I have also shown where you can change all of this color. Once I highlight on this inner part, I may come here, I may come to property and change a lot of things there. Okay, that is it there. It takes time to come. Voila. So I may want to change, maybe that's the left field. That is the right field. I may be interested on the right field part of it. I may be interested on the right field part of it because that is what denotes the reservoir. So on the left field part of it, I may instead of taking by color, no, not that. Left field. All right, area field. Instead of taking this, I will take right. So once I take right, this other part up now disappears. I am no longer interested in shading this part. I am interested in shading this part. You may want to change the color. You go there, instead of taking yellow, you may want to take maybe any color of your choice. You may want to take any color of your choice. The color changes. So that's the color that you have. So you are now explaining that this our baseline differentiate, because this baseline for resistivity will tell you what is hydrocarbon and what is water. Whatever is above this baseline indicate our hydrocarbon, and whatever is below the baseline indicates our water. So that is basically qualitative analysis. That's basically our qualitative analysis. All right, I've gotten that. I was trying to look at where you can reduce the scale. You just press Control and then you come here. Once you highlight it like that. You press Control button and then you screw down. You can always expand that. So basically, we are now seeing it clearly now. So you can now see it. You can now see the entire reservoir. Once I click on this and I press Control, and I can always adjust it to see everything. So that's the entire reservoir that you're seeing. You can always press the Control and expand it, no matter how you want to do it, and expand. So you press Control and expand, and I'm seeing the entire reservoir. So basically, I'll realize that in this zone, I have basically 3 reservoirs: 1, 2, 3. But if you want to separate this one, there's still no problem. You can still separate. So that's how you reduce the scale. So this is basically what we call qualitative analysis. Identifying the reservoir, identifying what type of fluid we have in the reservoir, and identifying what type of hydrocarbon we have within that particular reservoir.
Send me
So,
get VP other time.
Yeah, I'm supposed to get written.
Where is it?
all right. So after you have done that now, we go now to home, and then we can print. You print whatever you have here. You print that. That's a plot that has appeared. You can print in A4 format. Once you go to home, you take print, all of this will appear. You print in A4 format. So I will take print. Hold on, let me see. Print. Always make sure that you save everything, so that when you come back to it, save it so that tomorrow when we come back to it, there will be no problem. Okay, you can screenshot also. So if I take this out, I can always screenshot the window. That is it, you screenshot. Where do you want to screenshot? Current window without title, graphical zone only, main window. So you can still screenshot everything. Then you go now and you can still screenshot everything. Then you go now and crop it. If you need only this particular part, you can always screenshot it. But we can print. I'm looking at how we can print as a PDF. All right, we can print this as PDF, but I'm trying to look at where we can print that as PDF. I've printed that so many times, but all right, you can always do some kind of adjustment there. No, our format should be A4. The best format is A4. format. That's the best format. Customize. All right. All right, for now, let's just screenshot it and save it. Because what you are going to do is at the end of the exercise tomorrow, you are going to do the same thing for sample 2. You can even start doing it today if you wish. You have to follow the video and do the same thing for sample 2. So what I need at the end of the day, is just this plot. So you are going to screenshot this plot at the end of the day. Then you send it to me in the PDF format or in picture format. You are going to screenshot this at the end of the day after you have done all of this analysis for sample 2. You do the same for qualitative analysis and quantitative analysis. We are going to do the quantitative analysis tomorrow. We are going to do it. So if there's any